Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Buckets podcast. I'll be your host once again, Jacob. Week 5 is in the books. We're moving into week 6. We're actually in week 6 already. Apologize for getting this video uploaded a little late. Had a busy weekend, busy trip out of town. Big event happened in my life, but that's neither here nor there. That's not related to fantasy basketball. I'm kind of switching things up. I don't want to keep talking about the same waiver wire prospects. I still have some to mention, still have some to talk about, but I'm gonna do some waiver wire prospects, and it's gonna be called the atom segment. Not like atom like a nucleus, but like atom to your roster. So I'm gonna have an Adam, a Watch 'em, and a Drop 'em segment in this video, and it's just something to kind of touch base on. That way, I'm not giving you the same waiver wire prospects and reiterating information like I've said in the past videos. And I think it's also it'll also be helpful. It'll give this a different twist. If you guys like it, let me know. If y'all hate it, let me know. Good week of basketball, man. The Rockets have been hooping. This will be a waiver wire prospect that I will talk about, but I've already spoken about him since my deep sleeper video. But if Clint Capella is on your waiver wire, scoop him up. I think he's only like 67% owned. The man is hooping. He is hooping. Him and James Harden have a great connection. Harden lobs to him, and he dunks it. And Capella's free throw shooting has actually improved a little bit the last couple games. So that also adds value. But yeah, basketball's been great. It's been a great week. I scooped up Jeremy Lin last week. He still hasn't came back, but luckily I was able to win my week while I had him sitting on my bench the whole time, and I hope he comes back this week. It'll be a good look if he does. So that being said, let's get into it. Let's get into the guys who are low-key balling, the Adams segment. First guy on the list is going to be JaMychal Green, power forward for the Memphis Grizzlies. He's currently averaging 9.4 points, 6.6 rebounds on the season. And I got him on here because Zebo is out. Zebo's been out with a personal issue. I think he had a death in his family. Not only that, Parsons is still out. James Ennis is out now with the calf injury. And JaMychal Green was already starting. They're bringing Zebo off the bench. But he's been producing as of late, and with all these injuries, his minutes are going up, and he's getting more opportunity. Minutes again equals opportunity. I'll always remind you guys of that. But he's athletic. He's a great rebounder. He's averaging 30 plus minutes over the last 5 games. He's averaged 16.8 fantasy points over his last 6 games. And a lot of that has to do with Zebo being out. A lot of that has to do with all the other injuries that Memphis is going through right now. They're looking for guys to produce and for guys to step up. Mike Conley got hurt. I'll mention that later on in the video. But JaMychal Green is a good power forward to pick up. He's only 16.6% owned. So look for him on the waiver wire. Adam. Next guy on the list is Andrew Bogut. He's the center for the Dallas Mavericks. He's averaged 17.6 fantasy points over his last 3 games. He's a good passing big man. He has 6 assists recently against the Clippers. People forget how good of a passer he is. He's kind of been quiet with his assists this season just because he's not in Golden State and he's not in that high high-powered offense, and the Mavericks are struggling to find buckets and to find points. Coming from besides to come by points consistently besides Harrison Barnes. People forget that Andrew Bogut's a good passer. He's always been a great rebounder. You can always rely on him to give you good boards. He's averaging 10.5 rebounds on the season. He had 12 rebounds, 11 rebounds, and 14 rebounds in his last 3 games. And he balled out. He had like at least 20 fantasy points those last 3 games. So he seems like he's being more active. He's healthy. His production is trending upward, and it seems like that's when you want to pick guys up, is when they're trending upwards, and kind of ride that wave while they're doing well. And if they start to regress, then you got to drop them and not hold on to them. You can't. It's like poker in a way. You got to know when to hold them and when to fold them, and sometimes you gotta drop some guys. He's averaging 25 minutes for the season. He won't play heavy minutes just because of the size of player he is, and him being just a traditional big man. He doesn't really have the stamina to play a heavy load of 35 minutes in the NBA because everything is so up-tempo now. But he's only 33.2% owned. And if he can get his assist average up to where he's averaging a handful of assists, plus the 10.5 rebounds, you mix in, say, 8 points at a high efficiency field goal percentage rate, and he'd be a great fantasy producer if he could do that on a consistent basis. I'm not sure what Carlisle is doing with the offense over there, but they could definitely, especially right now that they're having point guard issues as far as injuries, and they're running thin at that position. He's a more than willing passer at the center position. If they could figure out how to maybe use him as a facilitator to the offense, it'd be great for him, and that could potentially be a plus for him fantasy-wise, because he could consistently do that. I could see him consistently averaging a handful of assists. He's definitely going to get the double-digit rebounds, and then you just need him to score a couple points to kind of trend or flirt with that 20-point fantasy per game range. So, yeah. He's available. He's only 33.2% owned. Look for Andrew Bogut. Next guy on the list who's low-key balling is Ersan Ilyasova, power forward for the Philadelphia 76ers. He's averaging 18 fantasy points over his last 5 games. He's shooting 54% from the field and 40% from the three-point line his last 5 games also. Covington is there. Robert Covington is the guy that he kind of shares minutes with. Although Ilyasova comes in as a power forward, the way Covington is shooting in a game determines whether Ilyasova is going to come into the game or not. And so far, Robert Covington has been struggling from the field. He hadn't really been shooting that well. The only other shooter they really have on the team is Nick Stauskas, and he's shot decently from the field, but it always helps when you have a guy who can play power forward and stretch out the offense, especially when you have Embiid on the block. If you can have a forward that can provide some space for Embiid to be able to, ISO on the post, then, that provides value to your team's offense if that's what is needed. And he definitely provides that. He's a shooter. He's always been a shooter. He's not someone who's, super athletic. He's just a good international, bred fantasy, smart player who, doesn't make a lot of mistakes. He's not going to get you a lot of block shots and do anything crazy athletically, but he's just a smart player. He'll take charges. He's great at doing that, and coaches love guys that go out there and draw those offensive fouls. And then when he's shooting well, it encourages the coach to put him in the game even more so. So, he's trending upward right now. Right now, he's shooting a great field goal percentage. He's shooting great from outside, so he's a great pickup at the moment. Like I said, Covington has been struggling. As long as Covington keeps struggling with his shot, the coach is going to need to throw Ilyasova in there just to provide another shooter besides Stauskas, because Stauskas is only his field goal percentages have been fluctuating. It's not like he's been red hot either and has been consistent. Ilyasova has been consistent over the last 5 games, and he's been putting up some good fantasy points in that stretch. So scoop up Ilyasova. He's been low-key balling. Next guy on the list, last guy for this Adam segment, or low-key balling segment, is going to be Jamal Murray, shooting guard for the Denver Nuggets. He's also been averaging, just like Ilyasova, 18 fantasy points over the last 5 games. He's shooting 48.4% from the field, and he's shooting a great 51% from the three-point line the last 5 games. So he's been shooting lights out. As you know, Denver has a lot of injuries. Gallinari has been hurting with the thigh injury. Barton, who came back but re-injured himself, and now he's out again, and he's still having ankle issues. Gary Harris is out with the foot issue, and I don't know how far or long he's going to be out. But Jamal Murray has all the opportunity right now. The only other guy that's really producing with all these injuries, absences, is Wilson Chandler. So Jamal Murray's been shooting lights out. He's not afraid to shoot the ball. He's averaged over 12 shot attempts during the last 5 games, and during those last 5 games he's averaging 18.8 points, 4.6 rebounds, and 2.2 assists. So it's not like he's just scoring; he's touching these other stats. So it kind of shows that he's a complete player. And I've seen the highlights of him. He's a great off the pass shooter, and he appears to be a great off the pass shooter. And then he curls around picks and will pull up. And like I said, he's not afraid to shoot. And if you're a shooter, and you're the type of guy that relies on shooting, you can't be scared to shoot, because that's how you make your money. That's your bread and butter. You gotta be able to pull that thing, and he's not scared to pull that thing. He comes in slinging. He's only 19.9% owned, so look for him on your waiver wire. He'd be a great addition, and that's the last guy I have on my segment for the Adam low-key balling part of the video. Next guy on the list, next segment for this part is going to be, I called it court vision, because you got to have the vision and you got to watch. These are players who you want to watch, who could potentially pop up and be big name guys, and not big name guys, but big producing guys as far as fantasy production. So first guy for this segment is Jeremy Lamb, shooting guard for the Charlotte Hornets. He's finally recovered from his hamstring issue. He was out like 10 games, but he came back. In his last 2 games, he scored 21 points and he scored 18 points. Charlotte has a pretty solid starting 5, but he could potentially get that 6-man role for the Hornets and be that 6-man off the bench and be the first guy off the second unit. A good attribute to his game is that he's a shooter, and he's more of a shooting threat than Michael Kidd-Gilchrist is, and he's even more of a shooter than Nicholas Batum. Although Nicholas Batum can shoot, Jeremy Lamb is more of a pure shooter than both those guys. So it's possible that they could slide Batum to the small forward position and then throw Jeremy Lamb in at the shooting guard position. And he's a guy to keep an eye on, so watch him. And he's only 10.8% owned currently. So he already came back and busted out these last 2 games. He might continue that streak and continue to do that same thing. Next guy for that we need to watch and have that court vision to see is James Johnson, small forward for the Miami Heat. He's shooting 52.6% field goals over his last 10 games. So he shoots a great field goal percentage. He's a versatile player. He touches all the stats. He's averaging 9.5 points, 4.5 rebounds, 1.6 assists, 0.6 steals, and 1 block, and 1.1 3-points made per game on the season. So he's got his fingerprints all over all the stats. The key to this guy's success and what you need to watch for is if Erik Spoelstra ever smartens up and benches Derek Williams, who's starting ahead of James Johnson. If Spoelstra ever sits that guy out and gives the majority of the minutes to James Johnson, which I don't see why he wouldn't, because James Johnson has been producing more than Derek Williams, even though he's played less minutes. So Spoelstra needs to. If Spoelstra benches that Derek Williams, James Johnson's production is gonna be great, and he'd be a good guy to scoop up if that were to happen. He's only 10.5% owned, so keep an eye on him, watch him. If he can. The other thing is Justice Winslow is out. He's hurt. He didn't travel with the Heat this last road trip for their games. And there's a lot of injuries. They're kind of banged up. So James Johnson's an old veteran who just gets it done, and he'd be a great guy to add. Just at the moment, he's not garnering the minutes because of Spoelstra playing Derek Williams alongside him. So look out for him. He'd be a great addition if that were to ever open up. Next guy on the list is that we need to watch, and this is I put him on this segment just because he is going to be the first guy given the opportunity. It doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to flourish and be the person, but he's going to have the first crack at it, and it's just something to keep an eye on as the situation develops. The guy is Andrew Harrison, point guard for the Memphis Grizzlies. This opportunity came about because Mike Conley hurt his back and will be out 6 weeks at least. He fractured some vertebrae, and apparently he'll be out for 6 weeks. So 6 weeks is a good amount of time. Andrew Harrison he's been in the league a couple years. He hadn't really made a mark. He came out of Kentucky product. Him and his twin brothers were hyped up a whole lot. He's not a great shooter, and he struggled from the field this season. He was a decent facilitator at Kentucky, so he was a decent point guard. He had a clutch gene to him during the tournament, but as far as him being in the NBA, none of the pros to his game have translated to the NBA game yet. He's still pretty young, so he can still develop and be that, but he's gonna have the opportunity, and Mike Conley being out for 6 weeks is huge. Memphis really relied on Mike Conley in that point guard position, so I don't know who's gonna pick up that slack. So that's the reason he's on this list. It's kind of like watch Andrew Harrison, but also just watch that situation as a whole, because the other point guard on the team is another young guy who's his name is Wade Baldwin, and I don't really know much about the guy. He's a youngster, and they're both youngsters, and they're both kind of inexperienced as far as NBA play. So that being said, the Grizzlies might just bring in a veteran point guard, and they might have a signing. So look for that. Look for the free agents who are veteran point guards that could potentially come over there. They might just do that. Memphis does have playoff potential, and they do aspire to make the playoffs. They've got I believe they're like 11-6 right now, which isn't bad. And you know, they I could definitely see them bringing in a veteran point guard. So just keep an eye on that situation. That's something to watch. Harrison is, of course, very merely owned. He's only 1.2% owned, and you know, if he'd be a guy just to watch. Like I said, these are guys just to watch that you could potentially add and acquire, who could potentially pay off, just, you know, for keeping an eye on them. So we'll get into this next segment, and the next segment is called I called it bench warmers, and these are guys you just need to drop them, guys you need to drop. So the first guy on the list, these are guys who are over-owned and shouldn't be owned at the percentage, who I believe should be owned at the percentage that they're owned at. First guy on the list is a legend. He's been a Rockets killer for the longest, but you gotta respect his greatness. And it's the German, man. It's Dirk Nowitzki, power forward for the Dallas Mavericks. Man, Dirk has already missed 11 games this season. When he has played, he's only averaged 11.6 fantasy points. It just seems that father time is caught up to him. He looks slow. It seems like I've seen so many highlights last season and then a couple this season where he's just backpedaling on defense against a guard, and the guard will just do a real simple, not even like a shimmy, but like just a simple crossover move, and then go up for a layup and just go right by him. And it's not even about Dirk not being able to anticipate the move. He knows the move's coming. He's just too slow to react. And he's got the IQ to anticipate though. He's never been a great defender, but he's got the IQ to anticipate those types of moves. It's just his body is not, just not reacting to it. And I feel bad for the guy. It's always sad when you see one of the greats start to lack what they used to have. But yeah, man, as far as fantasy, he's not. There's no reason to hold on to him. If he starts producing later on in the season, pick him up then. If he starts getting some rest and starts looking like his legs are a little fresher, he's 7 foot and can shoot, so he's always gonna be able to score if he's in the game and can pop off at any minute and have a vintage night. He's battling some injuries right now, and this is starting to look like the end. And he's not producing fantasy wise. He's hardly even playing. So why are you gonna keep someone filling up a roster spot that you could be using for one of these other waiver wire ads to give you some production? He's 73.7% owned. So about 3/4 of the leagues out there are have this guy under ownership, and I just see that. I just think that's a little too high. I understand, it's Dirk. He's a big name, and by all means, he's one of the greatest, ever to do it. But as far as fantasy and this year and actually trying to win your league, holding on to Dirk, I think, is gonna hurt you. So I would drop him if you like him and you're just a fan of him and you want to have him on your team. Wait till he starts beasting and he starts getting his starts producing and putting up some buckets. But otherwise, he's just gonna hurt your team, and I think you'd be better off. So yeah, Dirk is a bench warmer, and you should drop him. Next guy on the list is Aaron Gordon, small forward / power forward for the Orlando Magic. awesome dunks do not equal awesome fantasy production. Aaron Gordon, went crazy with the dunk competition last year, and he surprised the hell out of me and made it fun, and I enjoyed it. He did that under the butt dunk, and it was awesome, man. But as far as him as a player, he's not from what I've seen, he's not a greatly skilled player. His skill set is not above average for his small forward position. I would just call it average. He's only averaging 19. He's only averaging 9.4 fantasy points on the season, which is piss poor. For a lack of a better word, it's just piss poor. And Orlando has a strong front court, and they don't leave many rebounds for the small forward position. So, if he's good at if there's anything good about his game is that he can jump, right? And the fact that he can jump, when you can jump, you're more than likely going to get rebounds, and that's going to help you with your rebounding statistics and stats. So make you a better rebounder if you can jump. People forget you can also box out, but if you can jump, that helps you rebound. So that's a great attribute to his game, and he should be a good rebounder. The problem is that Orlando has a monster front court. They got Serge Ibaka, they got Vucevic. Hope I'm saying that right, Vucevic, and then they got Bismack Biyombo. All those guys can board, man, and all those guys are getting minutes, and they're gobbling up all the rebounds. So a lot of these, a lot of the rebounds are being gobbled up by those guys, and a guy like Aaron Gordon is just not gonna have the opportunity to get those boards. He doesn't have a great handle, and he doesn't, he's not a facilitator. His shooting is decent, but it's not great. So he can still improve in all those different aspects. But he's a great dunker, but as far as fantasy production, he's just not producing. And he also has Jeff Green there, who's a solid player that also plays a small forward position that eats into his minutes. So Jeff Green is no slouch. He's a good player in his own right. And Aaron Gordon's gonna have to fight for minutes for that position. So he's 64.2% owned, and I just think that's a little over owned than what he should be, and I believe it's because of the hype of the dunk competition. It might be time. And I could see why you would want to pick him up and see how he see if he flourishes and blossoms, but 6 weeks in, it's already. I would think I would not keep him on my roster. I'd drop him, and you gotta work those waiver wires and get the most out of your acquisitions for the week. So, yeah, man, don't hold on to him. Drop him. Let him go be a bench warmer. Next guy on the list, and last guy for this segment or video, is gonna be Brandon Knight. Brandon Knight is a bench warmer. You need to drop him. He's point guard, shooting guard for the Phoenix Suns. Obviously, the Suns are trying to push Devin Booker and, of course, Eric Bledsoe as their future in that backcourt. I think Brandon Knight is an afterthought. He comes off the bench and he gets a decent amount of minutes, but he's only averaging 8.8 fantasy points on the season. 8.8 fantasy points. You could pick up a big man. You can pick up a backup center that is playing that is going to get some PT because the starting center is resting or out or what have you, and get more than 8.8 fantasy points out of that acquisition. So yeah, man, drop Brandon Knight. TJ Warren has been hurt with the weird head injury, and he's been out. I'm not sure when he's coming back. That might be a guy to keep an eye on and watch because he was hooping when he was playing. But Brandon Knight, even in T.J. Warren's absence, has not produced. So T.J. Warren was getting buckets for the Phoenix Suns. T.J. Warren goes out and leaves that void of points that has been needed and that has been there. And Brandon Knight still doesn't produce, and has not, maybe taking that opportunity. So I don't know if it has to do with the coaching. I still think he's a talented player, but maybe Phoenix just sees something that we don't. And it's kind of been a trend with him. He's jumped around. He's with Detroit, then he went to Milwaukee, and it's like the teams, folks, or GMs or coaches, they see the potential, but it's like when he comes there, he has a flurry and shows a flash of what he could be, but then it just doesn't pan out, and it seems like it's the same situation here. He had a decent year last year and played pretty good, but he's definitely taking a step back to Devin Booker and Eric Bledsoe being healthy this year thus far. The only way I see him, garnering some fantasy relevance and being one of those permanent roster spots on your team is if there were an injury, if Bledsoe got hurt or Booker got hurt or somebody got hurt. He's only shooting 37% from the field, and he's averaging the lowest amount of minutes in his career. So Brandon Knight, man, drop him. He's 71% owned. He's over owned definitely, and drop the guy. That's pretty much it for the drop him segment and for the video. Like I said, you guys can find me on Twitter at fantasy_buckets. Look for me on SoundCloud. I always post a link in the description below. I hope you guys like this change of the video. Like I said, I'm just gonna try to give you guys more content. And yeah, man, let's keep rocking. I won last week. Helpful for that. Hope Jeremy Lin comes back. Man, like I said, Clint Capella, scoop him up. Trevor Booker, scoop him up. Who else is out there? Sergio Rodriguez, drop him. I could include him in the drop him segment. But yeah, he's kind of fizzled out. He's not doing what he was doing in the beginning. And yeah, man, appreciate you guys watching. Like, share, subscribe if you dare, and look for me in my next video. I'll be trying to do this weekly. I know I was a little late this week, but I appreciate you guys tuning in. Like.